Good morning. Can you all hear me? All right. My name is Bandak. I'm a former refugee from South Sudan. We're from Lungachuk County. It's near the border of Ethiopia. I like to think of myself as a refugee advocate and a human rights activist in general. My story begins back in 1991 when I was barely 8 months old. My family fled to Ethiopia and lived there for the next 14 years in the refugee camp. It was due to the Second Sudanese Civil War that affected many millions of South Sudanese. When the British left Sudan, given Sudan its independence, they gave most of the power to those who were in Khartoum, and most of who were the Arabs and also the Anglo-Egyptians who stayed in Khartoum. And basically, they view South Sudanese as inferior to the Arabs due to our background, as in color, also religious-wise. The war broke out between the South Sudanese and the Northern Sudanese. That war lasted until 1972. That was the first Sudanese civil war, and we signed a peace agreement, and the North made promises that they were going to develop the Southern Sudan. And those promises were never delivered, and in 1983, that's when the Second South Sudanese Civil War broke out, and which affected millions of families, including mine.
Get them! Allahu Akbar!
There were reports that the government troops had come to nearest towns, and they were going towards where we lived, and therefore my family fled before the government troops arrived there. They fled to the refugee camp in Dima. It's called Dima Refugee Camp, also in western Ethiopia. It took them weeks, for them to even get to the refugee camp. As far as I remember, there have been this report that it was about 500 miles. I'm not too sure if that's true. At the time, in the first place, there were thousands and thousands of families in Dima refugee camp during the war, and for those who were young, those who grew up there, that's all they knew, and that included me. That's all we knew. It was normal to us. We didn't know any outside world. We didn't know anything else better than living in huts. We didn't know anything else anything better than waiting for ration food every 30 days, and our hygiene stuff, soaps and clothing every 6 months. My daily goal was to survive was because other tribesmen from Ethiopian borders and South Sudan happened to come to our village to attack us and raid our cattle, or also even take children. The distance between the school and the main villages in the refugee camp was very far. It might have been, I think, 9 to 10 miles walk. And in the refugee camp itself, you're facing starvation. We didn't have any other goals. We didn't have any big dreams, nothing we lived for, and we're basically just, there. I did not realize how hard it was and how tough it is for children right now and those who are living in refugee camp until I actually came outside the camp, because I did not know any better that there is something better out there. In 1998, my family had filed for a case to refugee status to move out of the refugee camp, and we either face having to come to United States, Canada, Australia, or somewhere in Denmark. The case took about maybe 4 years or so, and in 2001, when it came out, they say that our case failed, and therefore was not able to come here.
We have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
Oh my gosh, another plane has just hit.
The building's exploding right now. You got people running up the street.
I think we have a terrorist act of proportions that we cannot begin to imagine at this juncture.
The whole building has collapsed.
I've never seen anything like this. This whole place looks like a war zone.
Good Lord, there are no words.
When there was an attack on the United States, they say that most of the cases were canceled. Something was connected to the fights against terrorism. And it was not just my family that, a case was canceled. Many families were, were denied their cases. I arrived in the United States in 2006, about 11 years ago. Within those 11 years, I have taken upon myself to educate myself. And I'm very surprised right now that I'm speaking to you in English. Yeah. In 2002, that's when I took the journey for myself. In 2005, we went to medical examinations, and eventually they told us that they didn't want me to go back to the refugee camp. So therefore, they took me to my sister, my sister, and her husband. They took us to Addis Ababa, where we stayed there for about 8 months before our departure. I was always talking about coming to the United States, and I don't know why United States, because there was many countries that they could have brought us into. But I was excited, sometime I would, tell my friends and talk to them about it. That was my hope for us to come here. March 24, 2006, that's when we depart from Addis Ababa to United States. We first landed in New York, and we went to Denver. That was our connection flights. Denver was our original resettlement city, our host city. But then they brought us to Phoenix, and the reason being was they say that Phoenix was much better because we came from a hot climate. So, and I'm sure they made the right decision. I was really excited. At the same time, I was sad that we were not all coming. That was another moment too. But I did not show that side of me, I was just making sure that, my family knew that I was going to be okay, and then they had nothing to worry about. There were talks that you could make a difference through, educations. You can make a difference having knowledge of, something that you learn in school. There are many opportunities, and there are higher chance of having to go places after completing school in the United States. You can be whatever you want. Back in the refugee camp, education was not as good as it is here. And that was the first thing that I wanted to do. I wanted to get enrolled in school, and maybe that's why they enrolled me just a month after coming, because I was really excited, and I asked them a few times, when am I going to go to school? We arrived in Phoenix in March 26, and on May 1st, that's when they put me to school. So you're looking at about a month and a half. And from May 1st to May 20th, that's when school was closed. And I failed all my classes, including my PE, physical education class. So that's something I laugh at every day at myself. That was just a language barrier that I had to go through. I knew how to ask for water, which is water in British. I knew how to ask, for me to go to restroom, which at the time I called toilet. So that were the basics. They placed me in ESL and ELL classes, as well as beginning math classes, and that was just the focus. I had to learn 1, 2, 3s, ABCs. Later that fall in 2006, I enrolled in the same classes that I was on prior semester, and eventually I passed them. I don't know how I did it, but I made progress. I was advised to even do more now. I had to do day school and night school in order for me to catch up on credit. So I would get out of class in the afternoon and go straight to Metro Center. I would do that. That was my daily life. One thing that motivated me the most that I was fortunate enough to come here. And I thought to myself, there might be somebody out there that's better than I that could, do even better than, the things I wanted to do. This is one in a million chance. I had to take advantage of, the opportunities that were presented and make sure that this chance does not go to waste. I was named the Outstanding Student of the Year for Phoenix Union High School District 2009. So Outstanding Student of the Year, so you're looking at maybe 3,000 graduates. I earned a 3.8 GPA, and I was also given a scholarship to Phoenix College. Eventually, I went to ASU for my bachelor's in political science and sociology. I graduated this year with my master's in social justice and human rights.
Woo!
Thank you. Remember this, like 7 years ago, this is where I walked. Yeah, for my high school. Yeah, here we are again. This is it, Grandma.
I know.
Yeah,
A long time.
it's a moment. This is big.
Good morning and welcome to Arizona State University and the Spring 2017 Graduate Commencement Ceremony.
Bandak Lul.
Congratulations. Thank you.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Arizona Board of Regents on the recommendation of the outstanding faculty of Arizona State University, I hereby confer upon each and every one of you the appropriate master's degree and welcome you to the company of scholars with all of its rights, honors, privileges, and most importantly, obligations. Congratulations.
The Masters in Social Justice and Human Rights covers numbers of issues that we face today, and this includes refugees, human trafficking, and people who are being marginalized. This was very specific to my life as a refugee, being a refugee child, and also being a product of war, having born in the Sudan, and also being forced out of my home, to become a refugee. So, and these are the issues that we now talk about in the Social Justice and Human Rights Program. How do we eradicate this type of issue facing refugees? The main drives for me is being a refugee. No one would understand refugees' lives better than someone that have lived it himself or herself. This trip changes everything, my look on the kind of work I want to do, and as well as how privileged I am to be at the position to where I'm at. We went to work with nonprofit organizations in Winneba, Ghana, and these nonprofit organizations works with children who were slaved in Lake Volta, and they were rescued by these nonprofit organizations. And Child Union, it rescued children from Lake Volta from the age of 5 to maybe 13, 14.
The child could be encouraging another child to bully.
That could be true.
Yeah. So that would be school-based human rights. Yeah.
Okay, so then maybe we can address that there.
We'll have to do some more research on it. Yeah.
After having to rescue them, it provides program to reintegrate them to the rest of the society, and also it shelters them until they are able to be themselves again. It was very emotional, for me personally, having to see kids who spend their whole life in the lake where they are tortured, where they face possible diseases in the water, and also all they do is fish throughout their lives. And there were things that I saw that reminded me of my childhood. When I was in a refugee camp, we would see Westerners, nonprofits, workers, aid workers having to come and visit, and we would follow them everywhere they went. And in my mind, they were our savior. They were the people that were coming to save us. And it was even more of a problem when they were, people who did not look like us. We did not have the same skin color as us. So, and that is the image that has been put in the African societies since, the colonial power, that the only savior is your masters. So those kids were basically just following us, and it was emotional for me because they refused to interact with me because I looked like them, and therefore they didn't see much of me having to make any sort of difference. They were associating themselves with my Western colleagues rather than having to come to me, even though we came for the same purpose. I was really broken that, after having saw the mentality of the locals, I broke out, I cried, and I remember telling my colleagues that I miss home, and I miss my parents, I miss my, my people back home. I just want to help, I just want to help my people. I have to think of ways to break that barrier. I'm not going to go as a savior. That's not going to happen. I will work with them, and because I will be experiencing, and I'm also experiencing the same oppression that they are going through, we'll be helping each other. How do we move forward as people? United States acts as a world leader. So in that case, if we must act as world leaders when we invade other people's country, we must act. We must also protect those individuals and civilians who are fleeing those countries, and make sure that we take responsibility for them. I don't think we can really compare refugee experience with kids who were trafficked. Those are two different populations, although they might have maybe similar traumas. What's your name? Lava. Lava. Okay, you're gonna do the ABCs, okay? They are willing to learn. I've seen kids who came from wanting to just be around us, and now they want to learn more from us in a sense where education is their first priority right now. Like this? This? Okay. Good job. Go for it. This one, smile. This one, smile.
Eyebrow.
You.
Eyebrow.
Yeah, check over.
Right here.
Good. I remember as a kid, we were put in classrooms. We didn't know what we were doing. We were giving all these 4-inch letters to write down on our books. So this is pretty much what it looks like, because most of these kids have never seen English alphabet in their life before, and this is the best way we can help them into integrating them to the society here in Greece. I want to leave you with two things. As you already took the first action to message them and also advocate for them. You can write letters to them, and also I think it's best that we don't politicize, people's lives, regardless of your background, either your gender, your race, your status of citizenships. That's something we should not politicize in our society. And if we begin there, I think we should move forward as a great society. Thank you.